Let's get started. Start with listening, and then learn new words and practice them in sentences.
You've been learning English for a while now, but it seems like your speaking skills have hit a wall. Sound familiar? This is where we begin our journey today, at the edge of what many language learners call the frustration plateau. It's that point in your language learning journey where, despite all your efforts, your progress seems to have stalled. The frustration plateau can feel like a vast desert, stretching out in front of you with no end in sight. But before you despair, let's take a closer look at what might be causing this stagnation. First up is the fear of speaking. This is a common hurdle for many language learners, not just those learning English. The thought of making a mistake can be paralyzing, causing you to shy away from speaking altogether. But here's the thing: mistakes are not your enemy. They're actually a crucial part of the learning process. Each mistake is a stepping stone towards fluency, an opportunity to learn and grow. Another common cause of the frustration plateau is an over-reliance on passive learning. This means you're spending a lot of time watching videos or reading, but not enough time actively using the language. Remember, language is a tool for communication, and like any tool, it gets rusty if you don't use it. And finally, let's talk about consistent practice. It's easy to get excited when you first start learning a language, and you might find yourself studying for hours every day. But as time goes on, life gets in the way, and those study sessions become less frequent. This is where setting a routine can really help. Even just 10 minutes a day of focused practice can make a big difference over time. But don't worry, hitting a plateau isn't a dead end. It's a sign that you need to change your approach. So let's dive in and explore how we can break through these barriers and continue on our journey towards English fluency. First up, let's tackle the fear of speaking. Many learners avoid speaking English because they're afraid of making mistakes. But let's flip the script on that fear. Imagine a learner named Alex. Alex was just like many of you, petrified of speaking English out loud. He'd stumble over words, mix up grammar rules, and sometimes completely blank mid-sentence. It was embarrassing, and it felt like he was getting nowhere. But here's the twist. One day, Alex decided to embrace his mistakes instead of dreading them. He started to view each error not as a setback, but as a stepping stone. Every mispronounced word, every grammatical slip-up was a chance to learn. It was a radical shift in mindset. Instead of his fear holding him back, it became the driving force propelling him forward. Alex decided to put his new mindset into action. He began to speak English at every opportunity, whether ordering coffee, asking for directions, or just striking up a conversation with a stranger. Sure, he made mistakes, a lot of them, but with each one, he felt himself getting better. It wasn't a smooth ride, of course. There were days when Alex felt like he was regressing instead of progressing. But he stuck with it, reminding himself that every mistake was a lesson learned. And guess what? It paid off. Over time, his confidence grew, his vocabulary expanded, and his sentences flowed more naturally. Alex's story isn't unique. It mirrors the experience of countless learners who've decided to overcome their fear of speaking English. The lesson here is clear. Embrace your mistakes. They're not signs of failure, but markers of progress. So the next time you stumble over a word or mix up your tenses, don't beat yourself up. Instead, celebrate it. You've just learned something new, and with every new lesson, you're one step closer to fluency. Remember, every mistake is a step towards fluency, not away from it. Next, let's talk about the difference between passive and active learning. Picture this: a learner named Alex. Alex loved to read books and watch English movies, all in an effort to improve his English speaking skills. He was a diligent student, making sure to absorb as much as he could from every resource he found. But despite all his efforts, his speaking skills seemed to remain stagnant. This is a common scenario for many language learners. They invest time and energy into passive learning activities like reading books, watching movies, or listening to podcasts. While these activities are great for building vocabulary and understanding grammar, they don't necessarily translate into improved speaking skills. Why is that, you may ask? Well, it's because these activities are passive in nature. They allow learners to absorb information, but they don't provide the opportunity to actively use the language, which is critical for developing speaking skills. So Alex decided to switch gears. He started to participate in English conversation clubs and language exchange programs. He began to engage in active learning, where he was not just absorbing the language, but also using it in real-time conversations. The impact was significant. His confidence grew as he got more comfortable speaking English. He started to think in English rather than translating from his native language. He found himself able to respond quicker in conversations, and his accent started to improve. He was finally breaking away from the plateau he'd been stuck on for so long. In essence, Alex's story illustrates the power of active learning. It's not enough to just consume content in the language you're trying to learn. You have to use it, engage with it, and make it a part of your everyday conversations. Active learning pushes you out of your comfort zone, but it's in this space that real growth happens. It's where you start to see the direct impact of your efforts on your speaking skills. It's where you turn your knowledge into practice, your understanding into articulation. Switching to active learning is like turning on the engine of your language learning vehicle. Finally, let's discuss the importance of consistent practice. Imagine a learner named Alex. Alex, like many of us, was struggling to improve his English speaking skills. He was doing everything he could, from watching videos to reading books, but his progress seemed to be stuck in place. Then, one day, Alex had an idea. He decided to prioritize speaking practice in his daily routine, even if it was just for 10 minutes a day. Every day without fail, Alex would find a quiet corner, set a timer for 10 minutes, and start speaking in English. He would talk about his day, his dreams, his fears, anything that came to mind. He would record these sessions on his phone and later listen back to them, noting down areas for improvement. At first, the progress was slow. His speech was filled with pauses and ums, his grammar was shaky, and his pronunciation was off. But Alex didn't let that discourage him. He knew that progress wasn't going to show up overnight. It was going to take time, patience, and most importantly, consistent practice. Weeks turned into months, and slowly but surely, Alex started to notice changes. His speech became smoother, his grammar improved, and his pronunciation was clearer. He was more confident, more fluent, and more comfortable speaking in English. And all it took was 10 minutes a day. Alex's story is a testament to the power of consistent practice. Just 10 minutes a day can lead to significant improvements over time. It's not about cramming hours and hours of practice into a single day. It's about making a commitment to practice regularly, consistently, and patiently. Remember, mastering a language isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. It's not about how fast you can learn, but how well you can maintain your learning over a long period of time. So, set a routine, stick to it, and watch as your English speaking skills improve day by day. Consistent practice is the key to unlocking your English speaking potential. And watch English movies, all in an effort to improve his English speaking skills.
Stagnation.
He was a diligent student, making sure to absorb as much as he could from every resource he found.
Example,
But despite all his efforts, his speaking skills seemed to remain stagnant. This is a common scenario for many language learners. They invest time and energy into passive learning activities like reading books, watching movies, or listening to podcasts. While these activities are great for building vocabulary and understanding grammar, they don't necessarily translate into improved speaking skills. Why is that, you may ask? Well, it's because these activities are passive in nature. They allow learners to absorb information, but they don't provide the opportunity to actively use the language, which is critical for developing speaking skills. So Alex decided to switch gears. He started to participate in English conversation clubs and language exchange programs. He began to engage in active learning, where he was not just absorbing the language but also using it in real-time conversations.